Hey guys, welcome to Let's Look At. This is Dungeons and Dragons Rule Cyclopedia. This will not be a tutorial or a review or first impressions. This is simply a look through at which is becoming my favorite book out of my collection. So this was released back in 1981. It is basically a combination of the original D&D games from the earlier years, Basic, Expert, Companion, and Masters. It has all the rules. It has guidelines and characters from level 1 to 36. Has weapons, equipment, expansion rules, optional skills, and a few information on the Hollow Worlds game setting. So, and plus some things for for 2E. Now, I found this at a local bookstore as usual, in a very small RPG section. And the owner, the prior owner, really took care of this. It's in great shape, has the usual wear on the spine. But the pages are so damn nostalgic. I love the artwork, and there's a certain color of tone of print, and it's a very big book. There's 300 plus pages in it. Covers everything. It really simplifies the original games for you, and I was very tempted to do a series upcoming based on through this book, which I have made a character uh, for just a practice run. I don't think I'm done with it yet, but this character here called Grim. He's a dwarf neutral level 1. Still working on him, but I think I've got all the basics down. This is actually an official sheet I found online that's, I believe, tailored for this book specifically from 1991 because it has everything laid out perfectly based on the character creation process in this book. So hopefully I can use Grim in a future video. But this is all of the this is the index here, the table of contents. And it has the character creation process. You have the classes, spells, spellcasting equipment, other character abilities, movement, encounters, invasion, combat, mass combat, which I've never dealt with before, but it's very intriguing to see that here. The War Machine and then the Siege Machine. Experience, non-player characters, strongholds, dominions. You have Dungeon Master procedures. You have uh, monsters, which is probably my favorite part. Immortals, treasure, which there's plenty of tables to choose from if you're building a campaign. Speaking of campaigning, the planes of existence, variant rules. Then you have Appendix 1 and 2 for the game world and game conversions, record sheets, and then you have the final uh, section here. So this is laid out very well. It is fairly straightforward to create your character if you want to follow these steps. You will have to do some page turning for equipment, etc. But again, it's all within one book. You don't have to juggle between a few books. Um, but I do again enjoy the tone of the font and the pictures and the ink. It's fantastic. It just has kind of a green hue feeling to it, which it's recognizable in some areas here, especially the top and bottom. And I'm noticing as I collect these books, I'm more so reading them than actually playing them. And I think that goes true for this one specifically. So again, this continues the character creation process. You have everything here as far as Thaco, which I finally learned. You have alignments here. You have the modifiers for your ability scores. You have personality, background, name, languages for the alignments. You have your height and weight, prime requisites, and experience points, bonus for that, classes, which I'm sure is everybody's favorite section. It comes with you have a cleric, which you can turn the undead. I think the cleric was the first one in here. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep, cleric is the first class mentioned in order. Then you have your fighter, which is one I typically use a lot, and like I said, it goes all the way up to 36 for perfect, which is perfect for a long campaign. Um, which is something I do not do often on this channel. Then you have the magic user. After so, you have all your spell levels and the experience level table itself. You have thief after magic user. Thief has the usual uh, table here for the special abilities that they come with. You have all the percentile rolls here to 36 as usual for all the characters. Then you have the dwarf class, which my character Grim is based on. If you're not familiar, and I wasn't either when I learned about older D&D games, the originals, the races were actually the classes for some of these characters, for these playable characters. Dwarf, elf was a class after dwarf, and then you have the halfling. So that's very intriguing, and I'm really interested in learning more and trying these characters out. Then you have the druid, which is optional, up to 36. You have the mystic character class, which I don't know too much about. Then we have spells and spellcasting, which I always like to say is my weakness in D&D. That's why I always pull a cop out and I use Karen for generating spells and sometimes maze rats. But this is the magical spell list. We're already at page 37. More about spells. There's still lots of text, and you have days and days of content to read. That's strictly why you want to get this book. I've just kind of glanced through it. I read certain parts for times just to learn more about the original D&D basic expert. There's just so much to go through. Each one has all these spells laid out. Then you have the fourth level spells. It goes all the way up respectively. Occasionally some artwork, which is always fun to see. It's not just text. You have eighth level magical spells. Spellcasting continues for quite some time, and then you have equipment. So this is one of my favorite parts, on top, including monsters. But yeah, here's your equipment to basically choose your weapon, how to roll your money, gold pieces you start with. You have ammunition if you track that stuff in your games. Then you have armor, which again, this is descending AC. You have 7 for leather. Your shield is a -1 on top of that. Suit armor is a 0. It's one thing I need to get used to because currently I'm using Deathbringer for my Ghostly Intervention series. I was tempted to use this for the next 5 episodes. That I typically like to change the rules up every 5 episodes, but this I feel like needs to be set in stone for a future series, for a future long campaign, and never change the rules. House rule, obviously, but like the foundation, the rules I want to use for a video series campaign, this would be never changed. 'Cause it's so massive. There's no way I would just use it for 5 episodes. Like, okay, I'm gonna go maze rats or something. There's way too much in here to ignore. So that's armor. You have the actual equipment, like for your adventuring gear. You have more for for barding, basically for travel. I believe that's for travel. Yep. Mule, horse. Yep. Yep. More transportation related land equipment, sailing. So it includes so much, especially for people who grew up playing D&D. And I don't know the popularity of this back in the 90s. Like I don't know what the popularity is now. It's I'm thinking maybe it was overlooked, or maybe it does have a place on people's shelves at home when they grew up. I just don't know. And if anybody who's watching this who has owned this or new friends that owned it, feel free to pitch in your observation on that, your perspective. If this book, which was um, a gathering of multiple rules from the original days of D&D, if people even bother to get this because it's so darn convenient to have all these in one book. That's what I'm wondering of how big of a footprint this has in the history of Dungeons and Dragons. That's what I'm curious about. So we have other character abilities, which I don't typically look through, but it's obviously here. Then we have the weapons mastery table. If you want to just do stuff like this is probably beyond me, but it's always really intriguing for people who want to go that precise in their campaigns, that advanced. There are, I'm going to skip this through just a bit because I don't typically look through it. Then there's movement, which I don't typically follow precisely, but it is here obviously because people, actual dungeon masters who are experienced and have been playing for years will follow this most likely thoroughly or homebrew or house rule it. There's land travel, aerial travel, and we have encounters. So that's a pretty funny picture actually. And then uh, your tables start to show more often now. So here is dungeon encounters per level. So with my current game, I would probably be using this level 1 encounter. You have bandit, beetle, cave, locust, centipede, a ghoul, goblin, human, kobold, lizard, NPC party, on skeleton, snake, spider, a bunch of stuff. Sturge, you have a troglodyte, zombie, and then there's a number of appearances. So I know in my last video I said with Deathbringer there's only humans. I can't really use that then. But in future videos, when I do it in my future campaign, when I use this book for the rules, I could use this freely. You have wilderness encounter tables. Still, plenty of encounter tables based on the terrain, type of encounters, city encounters, which is probably a very adaptable one for me for Deathbringer because these are mostly human-oriented professions, perhaps. So there's so many tables. That's why I love this. So this would be very adaptable and great to use for solo play. We're at page 107. Okay, here is a very important section. This is the attack rolls. This is your Theko section essentially. You have all these charts and all these numbers you have to uh, follow when you're leveling up your character. So my fighter, I would be right in this column here up to 36, and then I'll have to adjust if my character sheet, if I track it, I'd have to update these numbers every time, which obviously leveling up is not often, but when it happens, you can update your character sheet or just use this chart, print out a reference card, and use the chart respectively. So there is the level 0 character. You can do the normal man. 20 is a hit to hit armor class 0. Then you have 19, which is your starting default for level 1 characters. So then you have your clerics, dwarfs, thief, magic user. So I think DH is dwarf health, dwarf halfling. If I'm not mistaken, I see a references demi-human attack. Yep, demi-humans. So that would be your. I'm thinking demi-humans. Okay, moving on. You have saving throw tables, which you would use also for leveling up. More combat rules here. Mass combat. Again, this is very intriguing stuff. Let's skip ahead past the mass combat. Definitely a big section. Then there's experience. So when you kill monsters, when you find loot, you level up. There's a table right there for experience related to the monster you kill. Non-playable characters chapter here, Stronghold. It's just a great book. There's so much content here, more than I can fathom at this point. Then your DM procedures. So there's a bunch to go through here. And I'm hoping if you don't have this book and if this to some extent inspires you to perhaps look for it online or if you get lucky finding it locally, If it is probably available locally at your local used bookstore or hobby store that sells records, movies, games, electronics, guitars, stuff like that, this is probably going to be a locked up in a glass case because this I believe was where I got it from. And then my favorite section, monsters, because again, my knowledge of D&D lore is so spaced and just I need to improve more on it. This book has so much to go through. I've been reading through this, like the Beholder. It's fantastic. I love all the specs that come with each character, with each monster. You can easily use this to develop a campaign or a dungeon, crypt, etc. It's great. Like there's so much to it. And not everything has pictures. Obviously, you'll have to kind of keep an eye out for what you're looking for. There's a giant fish, and obviously at the level that the monster is doesn't show you it's to hit attack roll, but you simply based on that previous chart we looked at in the attack roll section compared, or the monster section that I think has the attack rolls based on the monster's level. So there's a griffin with armor class 5. And let's just keep going here. There's obviously going to be a lizard man. You got the locust. Again, there's so many monsters I'm still going through. You got normal human, AC 9. So you look at your merchants or something. You have hit die of 1D, then the -1. You have one weapon by weapon damage, number of appearing. Basically, a normal human is a game term for a non-human that does not. I'm sorry, for a human that who does not seek adventure. They do not have a character class. Kind of like the concept for Dungeon Crawl Classics. You're level 0 characters, if I'm not mistaken. So we're still going through monsters. It's a huge section. It probably is one of the bigger sections in the book. All right, then we have Immortals. So again, I'm not familiar with the lore of D&D as far as the release editions of books, but it says Masters here in the back, and I think Immortals was a release of D&D back in the day, if I'm mistaken. I have seen Immortal books at the stores, and I've been tempted to buy them, but the fact that this includes a section for Immortals, goes to show you how much dedication the creators of the book had. So your character can become a god and then retire. Then you have treasures, which is also another big part for with all these tables. You can roll all these tables here. You don't have to use an oracle, or you don't have to use like a, a solo tables. You can play pretty much out of this entire book if you want, like how I use table fables on occasion. There's even like weather. That's great. So the condition, the item, plenty of treasures. And we're pretty much reaching the end here, about 20 minutes or so. Just wanted to continue here past through campaign. Summarizes what to do, and then there's the plane of existence. You got variant rules, an extended experience table, and then there's this hex map here. So this is fantastic. It's huge. Well, it's not huge. But it's big enough to definitely do a long campaign in if you guys can see it. And I'll find here. There's legend in the corner here. Then there's color versions, or there's colored hex maps at the back here of areas, plenty of them. Then there's a world map. So that's huge. I mean, this is definitely a long campaign worth of material. Again, all of this is in one book. Then there's second edition and the game conversions. There's DM's character card. So here is the character sheet I was talking about, and let me make sure mine was correct when I downloaded it. That's basically what I've been referencing. This one is tailored for this edition of D&D or this book. It looks like mine is pretty much accurate. So this one I found online just by because I when I first got the book, I didn't see this in the back. I didn't know if there was a character sheet made for this book, and I was wrong, luckily. So saw that, like, oh great, I'll just find it and download it because I don't have a copier. Comes with a hex map, which I have plenty of hex books, and the index. So that's it. This is all for the rules cyclopedia. If you get the pun. So, and again, this the artwork is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys, if you guys have ever owned this or still have it, what you think. And I'll look forward to see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.